achieve job freedom with a 9 to 5? If you know me, my name is Lauren. I am the nerdy entrepreneur. And if you are on this channel, you probably want to be your own entrepreneur or escape your 9 to 5 or have something to secure you on the side. In this video, I'm going to share some of my story about how I did that when I did have the 9 to 5 quite a few years ago, like talking about over 10 years ago, 15 years ago. It's been a while. You see, a lot of folks are probably getting a little scared, particularly those of you viewers who are in the tech sector. And I would be a bit concerned too, because you're seeing all these layoffs, whether it's Meta, Microsoft, I believe, is scheduled to do a layoff sometime this year or another layoff this year. And, there's just a lot of people who have been either threatened of losing your job if, you don't return to work, or with the things going on with the federal workers, given an option to not return to work and still get paid for a few months. And then, boom, that's it, right? And with so many, even federal workers in other positions losing their position, scaring a lot of people. There's a lot of folks who are federal workers who don't believe they're going to have a job in a couple of months. There are people who are city workers who don't believe they're going to have a job soon, or those who have lost their jobs, or people who work for nonprofits recently who are in danger of losing their jobs or have lost jobs because of funding with the things that are going on currently with the things from the Trump administration. So you have a lot of fear with people in different sectors of the economy, whether they were in, they're working tech jobs, they're getting paid really, really well, everything was assumed to be stable, to all of a sudden being told, your past don't work no more, and return our computer, to people who thought they had really secure jobs because they worked for the government or they worked for a nonprofit that never had to worry about funding before. And so we're seeing all this happen in the last, couple of months, or almost couple of months now, particularly with the federal workers and funding situations for various folks who work or align with nonprofits. But we're continuing to see this with folks who are in the tech sector, which will eventually trickle down some more to folks who work other jobs. And I'm here to share some of my story because maybe it will encourage you to do something similar, so that if you find yourself in a situation, your life won't be destroyed. Because I've been laid off before. I know what it's like to be laid off. It sucks. But, years ago, I've always believed in having side hustles, having secondary jobs and starting businesses and, growing my bank from there, because at one point I thought I was going to continue my education to go to law school. So I did things to, help relieve that financial burden of what that was going to be. But I didn't wind up going. However, because I believed in, working those extra hours, starting my own business, having some control over things, it saved me quite a few times. Now, while I used to be a government worker myself, I've worked in the private sector for years, and I was a government worker for years, in different sectors of the government. So I understand both sides of what that actually looks like. I've turned around and consulted in the tech space, so I kind of know what that looks like as well, and still do. If it wasn't for the fact that I sacrificed some of my time during the day and week and worked very long hours to secure that I had a side hustle that brought in money, I probably would have been in a much worse situation than I was when I did get laid off because of no funding. That has happened before. That is not new. When I was coming up, this is going like 15, 18 years ago, there was a funding, I'm going to call it a funding stop in New York City. It wasn't as publicized as all the funding stuff going on right now, but a lot of places were closed. A lot of we see charities and nonprofits had to consolidate where they worked. A lot of government agencies consolidated where they worked, and they laid off state and city workers. So this is not the first time this ring around the rosy has going around. But that's what happened. I was an adult, a working adult during the financial crash, which was not fun, right? Being in school and then this stuff is happening. It wasn't a fun time. So because I had this mentality of, hey, always have your side hustles with a secondary job and start your own thing that you control for the most part. You can't depend on the government's jobs and the pension that don't exist in my mind and doesn't exist in reality for most people. And definitely don't depend on corporate, because they'll toss you out just as quicker than when they hired you. Okay. And if I didn't have that mentality in the first place, you may not see me here having this conversation, right? Or attempting to have this conversation with you. You cannot depend on the government on a job to take care of you if you work for it. You cannot depend on Meta, because you are working for one of the FANG companies, to take care of you when they decide that they're going in a different direction with their projects. You're gone. If you can't be reassigned, if they think to reassign you, if folks in your job don't like you because of whatever the reason they don't like you for, you will be gone. That has always remained true. Okay? If you're not good with the politics, that's what will happen to you. It's just it. No matter the economy is good or the economy is bad. And so a lot of folks just want to go to work, do what they got to do, and go home and forget about the day. Go to work, do what they got to do, and go home and forget about the day. What we all should have learned, or you should have also learned and observed by now, that is not enough. It is not enough for you just to go home and just be with family or chill or do whatever it is you do, and then leave work at work and think that one day something like this may not happen to you. It happens all the time. And unfortunately, most Americans are going to be caught with their pants down because they haven't worked a secondary job on the side to, get their finances in order or provide a nest egg for them. They haven't turned around and figured out some type of side business and hustle that they can get working and producing income for them, so that in case something happened, they have something they can dial up and rely on and not become homeless. They haven't done the things to make themselves networkable and all these other things so that they can hop to another job if something happens. They haven't updated their skills consistently to make sure that when AI comes in, they know how to use some of those AI tools so they're still valuable in the eyes of their employer. A lot of Americans have not done these things. And because they haven't done these things, it's a really scary time for people. Because if you've seen people who make $400,000 a year all of a sudden losing their jobs, what does that mean for you if you might be a secretary, or you might be a fast food worker, or you might be in a white collar administrator making 60 to 70,000 a year? What does that mean for you? When AI comes in, it could do most of your work within a few seconds. It means for most people that you're probably disposable. Whether don't need you at all, or maybe need you for a reduced number of hours. And you have to face the reality that, this could happen to most of us in some cases. I'm constantly investing in myself, in my skill sets, and I own my business, right? Because maybe the service I provide and the way I provide it one day will not be necessary or be obsolete. And I must be able to create another service offering or another product offering to make sure I can keep being in business and being competitive. And I understood this at a young age about this thing. So I always invested in myself and watched out. I tried not to get too comfortable in whatever job I had at the time, because it was a hard time, financial crash. It was not easy to get jobs in the first place. And, with schools, the student loan debt and all that, you had to be more careful, which is why I didn't decide not to go to law school. I was like, I'm not going to settle an extra $500,000 in debt with everything that's going on. And so I made certain choices. I chose to, I'm going to work 80 plus hours a week because I'm going to work on these side hustles, and I'm going to fund the side hustle myself with a secondary job to put in that side hustle until it worked. And thank goodness I did it. No matter how many times I failed. And I failed a lot of times. I had to get over a lot of things, right? I'm naturally an introvert. I had to get over things. Not that you get over being an introvert, but I had to learn things quickly and fail in order to turn around and create some safety. So when my job laid me off and I lost the benefits and all that other stuff that they were provided with me, yeah, it hurt. It sucked. But guess what? I just dialed up anything I was doing on the side and I made enough money to make it up. So I wasn't on the streets. I had, fortunately for me, a support system of family at the time, but I was never broke because I had my side hustle, and I was like, you know what? Okay, now I got to get a few more clients now, and that's what I did. But I didn't start from scratch. I knew how to sell. I knew a service that people were still buying, and I prospected. That's what I did. And yeah, I had the freedom of waking up relatively when I wanted to because of that, but I wasn't on the street. You know, I was able to turn around and get my health care back and pay for all those things. I was able to buy my glasses, and I have a very expensive prescription. I was able to do those things because of that. At a side job that the was like, okay, cool, I'll get my benefits from there because they're cheaper. And I dialed up and got more clients. That's what I did. But because I had been doing it already, it wasn't as scary. I had connections, I built relationships. So I was able to turn around and make that work instead of hoping and praying during a horrible time in our economy for another job. And that's something that I hope most of you don't experience a layoff that's devastating and unexpected. But what I do hope is that you get yourself together and be like, you know what? I might have to get a second job somewhere and just swallow the pride and do it. You know what? I'm going to have to learn some skills and upskill and start selling some of my skills out there in the market so that I am used to talking to people. I am used to selling. I get used to marketing myself. I get over those fears and hangups because you will all go through fears and hangups unless, you've been doing sales for like 20, 30 years. And that's okay. But it's better to turn around and start now than to have to wait until something terrible happens, like, hey, next week you get laid off. Because you can't depend on your government, as you can see, because all kinds of crazy stuff is happening. As you can see, your government really don't care about you. Some of you have family members that might see cuts in their benefits because of what's going on now. Some of you have family members who might work for a nonprofit who may not have a job in a couple of weeks or in a couple of months, or even next year if they have all that funding. And you must be prepared if that happens to you or someone who you care about and you need to be there for. It's not the time to freak out because of this thing is happening, that thing is happening. What's now is time to get a plan together and start taking those risks into building something that you have more control over. Because any one of you can start something on the side. It doesn't have to be an online business. I know a lot of people on YouTube want to talk about online business. I work for a lot of brick and mortars. I do a lot of work for brick and mortars. I do a lot of work for small businesses. I also do work for medium-sized to enterprise companies. Companies that are not made up online, that have offices and corporate structures and all that. I've done government contracting as a government contractor. Opportunities are out there for you. It doesn't have to be, I got to create an Instagram account and do a faceless account. And yeah, you can make money with that if you know what you're doing and maybe learn from the right people. Absolutely. I make money online too. I've sold courses. I've sold my services online to people who've made businesses from their couch. I've taken every opportunity and see, hell, I like this better than this, or I don't like this at all. So that I can build my business that allows me to do things to take care of myself and to enjoy life a little bit more and not be as freaked out as a lot of people are who have a job. They're like, oh my God, I won't be able to pay my rent next month. Or I won't be able to food next week. And you can have that too, but you got to start taking those steps now. While if you're still working, you have the security of your job, taking those steps right now. Evaluating the things that you can do and what people out there are willing to pay for. It doesn't matter what it is. I don't care if you decide to start a pooper scooper business where you go out and clean people's yards from dog poop. Because guess what? People are making a lot of money doing that. I don't care if you turn around and you know how to pressure wash and every weekend you go out there and you pressure wash and make a few $100s. Do something. Stack some of your money up. Try to cover yourself because you never know when the next day might be your last day at work or a loved one, a family member, and they really need your support, or you need to figure out a way to create more support for yourself. And you can do that while you have a 9 to 5. I had a 9 to 5, and technically I had the freedom to walk away. With the most devastating thing I had to deal with was really covering my medical expenses. That really was the biggest thing I had to deal with. Was really my medical. Outside of all my medical stuff and medical insurances, I was pretty much making the same, if not actually, I started making more like the less than a year after, because I had already taken those steps. And yeah, it's scary. Yeah, you lose time with the family. You don't get to go on trips as much. You make a lot of mistakes. You lose money. Stuff collapses. You go through with some anxiety. But guess what? I'm still here, and you can still be here too. But we got to start now, because it's not the easiest road. But for some of us, it will be your only option. You can't depend on the government to take care of you. They've already told all of us, screw us. You can't depend on that corporate job. They don't care anyway. But I know you care about you, and it's time for you to start showing it. If this was helpful, make sure you drop me a comment, a like, or subscribe if you're new to the channel. My name is Lauren. I am the Nerdy Entrepreneur. I share some of my business stuff here to hopefully help you become your own version of your nerdy entrepreneur, creating the freedom of getting freedom from job security, which does not exist, so that you can continue living your life and enjoying your life while being as nerdy as possible. Until next time, y'all. Peace.